Hey, if you enjoyed our episode, make sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review because it helps people who don't know about us hear our message. And if you want to follow us on our socials, follow us at G2G.
Well, alrighty, here we go. Welcome
Instagram
back to another episode of Generation to Generation, Bridging the Gap with Rex
and Eva.
And we are so
excited.
It is our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
Wow.
So excited.
Isn't that cool?
I know, it's so exciting.
April Fools.
I know.
This is going to be our last episode.
Like, wait, what?
I got you. I got
This is
you.
my own show. No, it was really fun. And it's been a really fun year. We've learned a lot. We fought a lot. I don't think you and I have ever fought as much as we have while doing this, but we're doing a lot better now.
We are, but that's part of the lessons learned. And so to celebrate, you know, last year, I think we actually picked April Fools because we came up with a cute little logo.
No
We said,
joke.
yeah, we said, hey, it's no joke. We're launching our podcast on April 1st.
Yeah.
And so now forever, we're going to be able to celebrate our podcast anniversary on the 1st of April,
Yep.
which I think is really
It is
cool.
really cool.
But we, you know, we made a commitment that we were going to be here a year later, and actually we made a commitment we were going to do 100 episodes.
So it
and
took
then
us
we would
a year to
decide.
get 50 episodes.
It did.
So
And I got some stats that we can go over. Yeah, matter of fact, that'd probably be cool to hit the stats up front.
yeah, so I can tell y'all some of them.
yeah, go for it.
So we have a little under 2,600 listens, which is incredible, guys, for a year. Our biggest episodes were the porn problem, why your vote matters, and the veteran special that we did. So like pretty much all of November
Really?
was our biggest month.
I didn't
probably.
know that.
It was really cool. Yeah. Those are probably, I think, the episodes we're the most proud of too, are those in the Martin Luther King episode. I think those 4 episodes were probably the ones that when we got done, we were like, wow, like those were probably some of the best ones we've done so far. And we have listeners from 11 countries.
Now that's what blows my
That's
mind.
really cool. Thank you, Germany, Canada, and Mexico. You are our biggest supporters outside of America. And Virginia is our number 2 state.
Really?
Yeah. So shout out everybody in Virginia.
Love Virginia.
yeah.
Virginia is
For the
just
lovers.
rich. Yes, it's for lovers, but it's rich in American history. So love the state of Virginia. Did not know that.
We have like a little over like 600 downloads,
Okay.
which just means that you've added the show to like your like favorites. So, hey guys, if you want to help us get to 1,000 there, just follow our show, hit downloads. And every time we post a new episode, it'll automatically load up on your phone.
Yeah. And the wild thing about that to me is that we really have not done a lot of social media. We have done very, very little. And so when you think about it, if we have done social media, those numbers would be significantly increased, but they're still pretty impressive.
They are really impressive. And guys, I turned my thesis in Monday, so y'all got
Yes.
my full attention for like the next month until I've got to present it. So I'll be working on a lot of social media, getting videos set up, things like that. So we got a big year coming. It's very exciting. No, it's really funny because like one of the people I probably talk to most every day for like the last like probably 2 or 3 months had no idea we had a podcast. Like it's so interesting how like some of the people like closest to your life are like, oh, what? And I'm like, oh yeah. And so I'm like, I probably should like, you know, bring it up more or like post about it more so that my friends know about it because my math tutor listens to it. So shout out her, but it's really, I got to get it to my classmates. They listen to a ton of podcasts and
Yeah. So why not this one?
I don't know why I haven't, it just registered today. I was like, oh, I didn't tell them. And so.
Well, there's a lesson in that. If you don't believe in your product, no one else is going to.
Well, at the beginning,
and
I
so
didn't.
I have learned that. Well, let's come back and talk about that.
Yeah.
I've learned that in preparing to publish my first book, which is going to come out later this summer. But we obviously have a lot going on in terms of getting the podcast done. And let me throw the stats out, and then let's talk about the lessons learned. So don't forget what you just said.
Yeah, I got it.
What did you just say?
I just said I didn't believe in us at first.
Yes, I want you to come back and talk about that. But check this out. And we found this out early in the coaching experience that we had. Shout out Sam Crowley up in Cincinnati. Sam was gracious enough to coach us through the startup and the initial phases. But he told us only 10% of podcasters even make it past episode 3 or 4. I was blown away by that. Had no idea. And so here, I just looked them up real quick. 90% of podcasts do not get past episode 3. Only 8% create 10 episodes or more. Only 11% make it to 50 episodes.
So 11% of that 8%?
Well, it doesn't say that. It says only 11%. Okay. So I think it's 11% of the total number that start.
Okay.
Check it out. Only 4.78% ever make it to episode 100.
Ooh.
And then only 2.35% ever make it to episode 200. And you and I learned, right off the bat, the reason that is it's hard.
It is so hard.
Doing a podcast is hard.
It's gotten easier over time.
It has.
But it is still a hard thing. But with practice, it gets easier.
It does. And it's a discipline like anything else. Mm-hmm. And if you don't discipline yourself to do it, like I'm going to use physical training because I've always done that. You know, I run, I still lift weights. I try to get to the driving range because I enjoy golf. But if you don't do the thing, whatever it is, you don't get good at it.
Yeah.
If you don't read your Bible, guess what? You don't get good at understanding it.
Yep.
So we found that out with the podcast. If you don't do it consistently, you're not going to be good at it. So come back and let's talk about lessons learned. What have we learned together individually the past year in this journey? And you said you didn't believe in it. So talk to us about that.
I want to list the 3 things that I've learned the most, and then I'll hit each one of them. I didn't believe in a product fully. I believed in it to an extent. Did not understand the gravity of it, I don't think. I did not know. I learned how to disagree with you and how to communicate with you. And I think we learned how to communicate with each other, which was a long process. And I learned to appreciate the sound of my own voice, because when you listen back to those recordings, you got to get used to it. But I learned to not be so judgmental on my work, because some of the episodes where I feel like I rambled or things like that are the ones that people come up to me and tell me were their favorite episodes. And so it's like special, because what I thought was like my worst moment was me being hard on myself, not somebody like sat down with me on Saturday and was like, this is my favorite episode y'all have done. And it was incredible, because that was an episode I was extremely hard on myself about. And so it's been like an interesting thing. But not believing in myself. I remember us having this conversation multiple times of me saying people in my age are never going to listen to it. And that's probably true. We probably don't have a ton of listeners that are our age or that are my age. But I learned that it doesn't really matter, because if they want to listen to it, they are. If they don't, that's okay. I don't listen to podcasts consistently. The people that I know listen to podcasts consistently don't even know I have a podcast. And so it's my fault for not sharing it with them. And then it's up to them. That's one thing I had to learn, is that I can only do so much, and then the rest is up to them. And so I thought we were going to be extremely limited in our audience. And no, I think we have an incredible audience that expands across so many different generations. But I was extremely hard on myself originally. And I just remember arguing at you is like, I don't understand how my perspective is going to add anything to it. And I think I was also going through a time during April of last year where I was dealing with a lot of like not self-worth issues, but understanding my own intelligence and like not doubting it. And there's more on that, but it's just like, I think that I really struggled with accepting that I do have something to say sometimes. And over the really since November, I think I dealt with that a lot until like November. And when we did Why Your Vote Matters, that episode, that was really the first episode where I feel like led the idea of it and kind of led it. And it really, I don't know, it was something so satisfying about it. Seeing it become our most listened to episode, it was validating. It was like when I did interviews for the honors program, and I was like, this is the most validating thing of my education, was because people don't generally get classical school. They don't get why I don't study Civil War or the World Wars and anything like that, and getting to sit in a classroom with it. So like getting to talk about something that I understood, that I had something to say about, it was like that was healing for me. I think while it was probably one of our best episodes, it was also healing for me. And so since November, my confidence in the podcast has grown a lot more too.
That's awesome. And I will tell you that is true. One of the, I did take a few notes. to watch you, Eva, grow in the past year, again, it goes back to embracing the process, embracing the discipline, the habits that are required to do anything. But to watch you, if you're sitting in my seat as a dad and looking across the table at you as a daughter, to think about where you were on day one, episode 1, and where you are now in episode 50, it is mind-boggling. Yeah. And I just want to congratulate you on that journey, because you're right. You were a lot timid. And I get that, because you were hesitant to put your opinion out, because let's face it, in this internet age, once you put it out there, it's out there. Yep. And I even had a little trepidation as a pastor on staff at a fairly large church. It's well known. We have never even mentioned our church by name on the podcast, because I've never wanted to say anything that would be taken out of context to where somebody could throw shade on our church or on anybody.
We don't
talk about it. Yeah. and so, but the point is, I've never wanted anyone to throw shade on an organization or a church or anything that I'm associated with, just because there may be something I didn't phrase properly. Again, we live in that kind of culture.
We love to take things out of context.
We do. And so I got to tell you, I was a little tense when we first started. And I would, you will remember this. After certain episodes, I would remind you, hey, don't say this, don't say that, don't say, and then,
I would do the same thing with you about don't name drop this, don't use that phrasing, don't use this. And I think we've both become more confident. Hey, I'll give you a big compliment. Somebody told me Saturday, and today, actually, somebody said, I would love to just sit with your dad and hear his honest opinions about the things he can't say on the podcast, because he wants to remain nice, but want to hear about his thoughts of politics, because he always kind of skirts around his actual stance on things. Somebody said, I just want to hear his honest opinion off air. And I was like, that's really sweet, though. It's because we do a good job of obviously making it clear what our beliefs are, where we stand. Like, there's no shame in that. Like, listen to any podcast from the month of November. I feel November was probably my favorite month we've ever recorded in. But I also think we've done a really good job of keeping a balance to it too. And so having somebody come up to me and talk to me at breakfast about how much they wanted to hear, like not that you aren't honest, but just the unfiltered side of it. Because I do feel like we do have a little bit of filter, obviously, when we're recording, which is valid, of course.
We do.
But I don't think any of it is unauthentic. I don't know what the proper word is. I think it's all real. I just think we're more cautioned about the order of the words that come out of our mouth.
Yeah, because here's the deal. And we learned this from our church, in all honesty. When we lead small groups, we don't have a lot of rules at our church, but one of the unspoken rules is, hey, stay away from controversial topics on social media, even in your small group, because here's the thing. When you express your opinion, especially in a small group, you're going to lose. If it's a political opinion, you're going to lose 50% of the group. You just isolated 50% of the people in the room, and ministry for us is much more important to be able to relate to a person, to have a conversation with a person, than for me to express my unfiltered view about any particular topic. Yes. And to your point with your friend, tell him I'd be glad to go to breakfast with him anytime and be unfiltered, because I do have an unfiltered side where I will be a little bit more direct with you if you ask a precise question. And my answer to that always is, when somebody asks me a hot topic question, I always start by saying, don't ask me a question that you don't want to hear the answer to. Okay? Yeah. So tell them to invite whoever it is, tell them to invite me to breakfast.
I will.
But I think it's so cool that we have, and you and I have even talked about this. If you want to increase your listenership, where you get a little bit more controversial, because people like that.
We really tried to remain, originally we were like, no, let's remain like unbiased. Let's just keep it general. We don't want to isolate an audience. And we found that to be so incredibly hard, especially in a podcast about us bridging a gap. We have so much life experience and worldview that comes and backs up why we believe things and why we have these opinions and why we talk about them. We couldn't separate the possible controversial side. So we just have to handle how we approach it, because obviously we, like in the politics episode, in the veterans episode, in the ethics and morality episode from last week, there's so many things where our worldview, which we talked about in our worldview episode, because I felt like that's something I really love to talk about, clearly, is that we couldn't separate that. That's as much as who we are as our minds and our hearts and where we are. And so I think it was incredibly important that we understood that early on, because we did struggle. I know we struggled a lot with trying to remain like quote unquote uncontroversial, but sometimes you have to be firm in a belief and be firm in it, because then there's other people that are going to go, I completely disagree with you. Like that person from New Zealand who left a comment on us or something like that. I don't even remember that, but it was somebody who was like, and it was really funny. But but we have people who like to hear our opinions. And that was something really important, is understanding we're not trying to be everybody's audience, but we are trying to find an audience. And so,
yeah, that's exactly right. And I learned that from a marketing conversation that I had. It was a brainstorming session, actually, with some people that do podcasts, write books, or just kind of in this footprint, so to speak. But I'll never forget the lady said, I'd never heard this before. She said, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. And I'm like, I had never heard that. And I'm like, that is so good. And being in the middle of publishing a book, I had to even think about that from the aspect of finishing up the book. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm not talking to everyone in the book. I'd love to talk to everyone in the book, and I'd love for everyone to love the book, but that's simply impractical, and it's not going to happen. So you really got to know who is it that you're talking to, and you got to kind of focus that and narrow it. And to your point,
that's the number one rule of rhetoric too, is you have to know your audience. And that's what we had to learn how to do.
Yeah. And I think part of that too is you jumped in on me. Now
sorry.
We had to learn that too. But as part of that, we had to realize who we were, not only individually, but together. And you said this, but our worldview, we never want to come across preachy. We've never wanted to come across, hey, we're going to throw a bunch of Bible verses at you. But the truth is, we are a Christian family. It frames our worldview. It frames the way we think. And just by natural extension of that, we're going to start talking at some point about the Bible, what the Bible has to say about these issues.
Our convictions, our beliefs. And it's, and that's okay. If it's not for you, it's not for you. If you want to learn more about it, reach out to us. We have social media. If you want to yell at us about it, again, reach out to us. You have free will. But this is us discussing life with each other, teaching other people how to, and part of life is your beliefs and your convictions. And we had to stop running from that in order to make a good episode. I hate our first 15 episodes. Will not listen to them. I tell people, if you're going to start with our podcast, don't listen to the first 10 or 15, because we were just scripted. We were we didn't have a good flow. I'm like, if you want to listen to any of them, start with the ones we started in November, because those are, I feel like, where we had just had a big fight in October. I think it lasted 2 or 3 hours. It was all of us. I remember that Sunday at Jason's Deli. We had been fighting forever.
Oh, you and Mom had been fighting because it got political at lunch.
Yeah. See, we even fight at the dinner table, but then you got brought into it too. And
I tried to avoid it.
We were literally standing at the entrance of Jason's Deli, just yelling at each other, essentially. Not really yelling. We were just very heatedly, pointedly discussing things. And that was
over minimum wage, wasn't it? Wasn't that what it was about?
It was over minimum wage. Yeah. But it morphed into a conversation about the podcast at some point. But that was really the big breakthrough for us, I feel like, too. It was right before the election, so we were still kind of discussing politics. I'm still learning about it. I was in the middle of my government section of my government and economics class. It was just a lot of things we had been discussing. And we had argued with each other. And after that, because you write notes for everything. Guys, he has 15 pieces of paper sitting over there from notes from every episode, and a pen and sticky notes and everything. And I literally have a bottle of Fairlife protein in my phone, which I have texted people in the middle of this conversation. I'm like, that's how different we are. And so he used to try and send me these really, really long notes and outlines of kind of where he wanted the conversation to go and some points he wanted to bring up. And I would not read them. I would read them and I'd be like, this overwhelms me. I don't want to know this. And he'd get upset at me because he'd be like, well, did you not check my notes? I'm like, no, I want you to tell it to me. And he'd be like, well, but we have 5 minutes before the show. I'm like before we record. I'm like, yeah, I want the TLDR, the too long, didn't read. I love reading, guys. I just don't like reading how to do something. I'm like, I want to sit here. I want to discuss with you. I want to be able to say, but why are you saying that? Or can we not talk about that? And things like that. And it was hard because you're such a, like, you read things, you're very analytical, and I'm not. I go with the flow. If I have a plan, I stick to it. And so that was really hard for me, was reading your kind of outline for how you kind of wanted things to go. And then we would stray from it. And then I'd be like, this isn't what you talked about. So I don't plan things unless I know that we're going to stick to the plan, because if the plan gets broken, then I kind of like freak out. But
what a lesson learned, though.
It was.
We had to learn each other.
And it took us like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, you really got mad at me.
I did. I'd get so mad. I would walk out in the middle of recording because he would get so like upset, or I would turn the episode off because I'd be like, no, like you're literally reading straight notes off your phone. Like, put the phone down and talk to me. And I would get up and I would just leave. I'd be like, we can do this when I'm not mad at you. I had told him multiple times, I'm going upstairs until I can say something to you I'm not going to regret. So, which we had never fought like that. I fought I have fought with Mama like that, like things like that over petty little things for years, because it's a mother-daughter thing. We're very similar. We bicker, and Daddy's will come in and he'll be like, hey, chill out. And we just both look at him and we're like, it's not that big of a deal. We're just aggressively talking to each other. And then we move on. And 5 minutes later, we're sending reels back and forth. But with you, I had never really like, sure, as a kid, I threw a shoe at you, or I would like.
One time.
Yeah. I would run at you, like, or run away when you were trying to put me to bed, things like that. But I had never really like truly disagreed with you.
Right.
I had never said, hey, you like, because I had even told you at one point, I said, I've had to learn so much to learn how to communicate with you, how to do the podcast. Can you do one small thing and learn how to communicate with me for this? And that was really hard for us to both accept. I think it was really hard for me to ask for that and you to accept that. And it was a huge learning curve. And it was hard. And there were multiple times we said, can we keep doing the podcast? There were multiple times where we said, should we just quit? There were multiple times I considered saying, I need you to do the podcast on your own. I can't do it anymore. And I told you that at one point. I said, if you can't change how you communicate with me about the podcast, I can't do it anymore. I said, I will edit the episodes, I will publish them, I will do your social media, but I cannot be a part of the podcast if you can't learn how to talk to me. And that was just something we had to get over. And we did. And our relationship has gotten so much better because of it. We were able to have these deeper conversations. I'm able to say, hey, I disagree with you. Or I feel like our conversations have gotten deeper. I think we've always been able to talk about things, but I feel like since then, since you've learned how I communicate, since I've learned how you communicate, and we've adapted with them, that we talk so much more like deeply, and we have so much more feeling and passion in it because we know how to have a conversation now.
Yeah.
But it took a lot. And I will say this right now, y'all have watched me grow up on this podcast. Within this year, so much in my life has changed. There's been so much growth. When I look back on who I was a year ago, oh my gosh, I'm sorry if you knew her, but there's just so much that I've like grown, and it's been this wonderful thing. And part of growing up is the change in how we communicate. I'm about to go to college, and that how we communicate is going to change again because we're not going to be living in the same house anymore. And so it's just, I feel like this has prepared me for so many things, like my interviews, like my discussions, my thesis. Oh my gosh, this has helped me so much be comfortable talking, stating my opinion, defending my opinion. And so I've always said it, I love the podcast, but I'm not doing this for other people to hear. I'm doing this so that I have your words recorded forever. And that's something that I think I've been so incredibly grateful for, is now I'm able to engage with you on a deeper level, to ask the questions that in 10, 15, 20 years, I'm still going to want to know answers to. And that I'm still going to have your wisdom to go back to. And that when you're past and all these things, I still have your wisdom recorded. Because I remember you saying one of your biggest regrets about when your father was alive was not recording y'all's conversations, and I'm getting the opportunity to do that. And so that has been the most gratifying thing from this experience.
Yeah, it's been so cool, Eva. Just that process that you just talked through. We had to figure out. I'm a visual learner. I am very analytical. I want to see it scripted. I want notes. I just want it all laid out. An audio learner,
and visual.
But more audio.
Yeah.
You don't want to see all the notes.
Nope.
You just don't. It overwhelms you.
Yep.
And so we had to come to an agreement on that, and we had to learn each other. And that's one of the lessons I have. I just wrote a few down. co-hosting, it's one thing if you're going to do a podcast by yourself, but if you are going to effectively do a co-host with two people, that makes it even harder. Mm-hmm. And so congratulations to us that we didn't kill each other this past year. But there was a lot of growth for you. And you already said you were in a difficult season as a 17-year-old junior when we started. Yep. And you've gone through all of this pressure of your senior year of high school. I'm a dad trying to filter and walk my way through that. And I've got my own things I'm dealing with. So for us to be able to come out 50 episodes later with these lessons learned, it is a victory. It's a triumph. But I love what you said. It's grown our relationship deeper. And I can't even wait for this next year to think about some of the things we're going to talk about. Maybe even we're never going to take the filter off to where we're mean-spirited in any way. No, that's not who we are.
That's not who we are even off mic.
Exactly. But we may kind of reduce that filter a little bit to give people some insight into, hey, what do you really think about that particular issue?
Like some of the episodes we want to talk about. I didn't think we were ready for them in the summer when we wanted to talk about them. And I said, I don't think we can do this justice. I don't think that we have the ability to do this topic justice. And I think we do now. Yep. And I think you're completely right. And one thing I want to say, encourage to the people who, we talk a lot about how this podcast has changed us. But my math tutor, even today, she said, how do you have a conversation with somebody who has different political opinions from you and continue to respect each other and love each other at the dinner table? And that's an episode that deserves its own episode. But it got me thinking. I was like, this podcast, right? You could have your own quote unquote podcast at your dinner table, just creating a space in your kitchen, in your home, in your dining room, wherever you eat, where everybody at the table can be honest, right? Where the dinner table becomes a place where, dad's rules or dad's word isn't Bible, essentially, where you create a place where the kids can disagree and you can say, well, what do you think of this? Like, I want you to be honest. What are your thoughts on this? Like how y'all asked me with the current situation going on in the church world, how y'all stopped y'all's conversation in the car and asked me about it. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know much, but y'all still wanted my opinion. Y'all still valued it. You still included me in the conversation. And I learned a lot from it. Just doing that at the dinner table rather than just going, oh, that's above your pay. Like that, you're too young for that. Things like that. You've always been honest about creating a discussion that teaches me. But that lets me have a voice. And so being able to sit at the dinner table and say, hey, you're 14 years old, you're 12 years old. What do you think of the politics in our country? What do you know of it? What are your friends saying about what can we help you understand? And what can we teach you and things like that? And not just saying, well, my way is the highway. And I think that's how you can build your relationship so incredibly much, because that's essentially what we've had to do. Is we went from me agreeing with everything you said, which I still do, and I still take everything you say with such high opinion, to me being comfortable saying, hey, based off of my readings and what I've learned, I do disagree with you a little bit on this, but still being able to have that honoring, that peaceful, that discussion. I think this podcast has done that, and you can do the same thing at your dinner table.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, we've said this multiple times, principles never change.
Yes.
But your perspective may.
Yep.
And I'm learning that the older I get, and I'm really open to this, and this because we've talked about it. Is there an area in my life that I have just maybe not seen it the right way? Yep. I'm going to pick a real easy one. I don't like hats in church, because I grew up that way. You didn't wear baseball caps in church. Well, now in this culture, it's just no big deal. Yeah. It's no big deal. Yeah. But for me, I would feel like I would dishonor my dad in the way that he raised me if I wore a baseball cap in church. So what I had to do was, hey, what's more important to you? For him to be in church, or the hat they're wearing. Or the hat they're wearing. What do you want? Well, I decided I'd rather have them in church than not have them in church. Yep. And so I've come to grips with that. And that's a very simplistic example, but it's a perspective that I had to change. Yep.
But them being in church is the principle.
Right exactly. Yeah. And again, a church is a place for sick people. Yeah. Jesus said that. Yeah. It's not the healthy that need a doctor, it's the sick.
Yep.
And so, and that's not saying
wearing a hat in the church is not a sin, but it's something that's changed with the generations.
Yes.
Like, for instance, it used to bother me a ton when people my age would wear shorts to church, because for me, that's not it. But I was like, oh, but somebody said something great. And this kind of goes to what you're saying. And it's just a great example of how easy it is to shift a perspective, but how much effort it takes. I think the hard part is not changing the perspective. It's realizing what your perspective is. And I didn't know why it always bothered me when like guys and girls my age would wear shorts to church. But then somebody had said, we don't clarify Sunday best is like the nicest thing in your closet. It's a step up from what you wear on an everyday. Like, what you wear. So I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt right now. So at church on Sundays, I generally wear jeans and a nicer shirt, or I wear dress pants and a nicer shirt, or I wear a dress. And so if these kids live in athletic clothes every single day, then putting on khaki shorts, or then putting on, blue jean shorts and a nice shirt or a polo or things like that is a massive step up from what they wear every day. And it was like, oh, like they are trying, they are coming, but this is their Sunday best. And I had to like come to terms with that, because I just always felt like it was lazy, and I realized that's not what it is. And so it was a simple perspective change. That was my hat.
Yeah. And I think to that point, to even clarify it further, instead of getting wrapped up, and I've been part of denominations where shorts as a no-go, and we trained our people that way.
Yep.
Well, instead of making the issue shorts or hats or whatever, the real issue with clothing for men and women is it, number one, is it clean? But number two, is it modest?
Yep.
And especially for a woman, what are you showing? And if you're showing too much cleavage or too much flesh to where it's causing men's eyes to wonder, that's probably not appropriate. Those are the types of things that we need to be thinking about. Yep. And it goes for guys too. Well, guys will go, well, I don't have cleavage. Well, yeah, but you got other stuff. And if you're wearing your pants too tight, sir, it can be a distraction. And so men and women.
But it's also, sometimes modesty isn't about the clothes you're wearing, but how you act wearing them. And it's like, yes, the clothes still, but I'm saying like, and I think that's a big thing too, coming to church or just any place, is what is your attitude and how you present yourself coming in. Because if the nicest thing in your closet is jeans and a t-shirt, and you go into an interview wearing confidence, that's going to speak just as loud as a suit does, because that's your best. But if you come into it as it's like too casual, too nice to dress, like you're too good to dress up for it, that's going to reflect it. And so it's like your best is like, it's like, confidence is the biggest. What is it? Confidence is the biggest, like one of the biggest attractions or whatever. I don't know how to word that properly, but it's like how you go about things. It's like if you have, it's something that's like, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to have confidence in what you're saying. Things like that. It's like people are going to listen to you when you have confidence saying that. They're not going to listen to the person who.
It attracts people.
Yeah. Yep. That kind of thing. I'm like, that's the same thing I think going into church too, is if you are ashamed of what you are wearing, and this is not in church too, this is in school, this is in the workplace, like I probably wouldn't wear it, like, because your heart going into it has to be right too. And if you're wearing it for the attention of others, is it the right thing? And that's something that I think like this, that I feel like this podcast has taught me too, is like, be more understanding because you don't always know where people are too. And so that's been something fun that I've learned.
Yeah, be empathetic, be compassionate, be merciful. Yep. Again, a lot of times I tell people, especially if somebody has snapped at them and they've been extremely angry, always remember, generally that's the anger talking. That's not the person. It's the hurt, the wound, the anger, the frustration. Yep. I had to actually hang up today. We've got a water bill that is insane. You heard me. And you heard what I did. I was starting to get irritated with the lady, and I said, this is not your fault. You have been extremely gracious. You have been extremely understanding, but I'm starting to get mad. And so I am going to hang up before I get really frustrated, and I will call you back tomorrow once I have had a chance to calm down. Yeah. Do I have a witness?
Yeah, 100%. And when you said that, I said, oh my gosh, I've said that so many times to people it's not the waiter's fault. It's not the waitress's fault. It's not their fault. They're not the ones creating the policy. They're the ones executing it. And they're doing the best they can. And that's why I live by the motto, if it's going to still bother me in 10 minutes, I'm going to fix it. And if it's not, then I move on. And that's something that I tell everybody is if it's your pickle on your burger, don't go back and make a fuss about it. Just take the pickle off. But if you're allergic to gluten and they put it on a bun and it's going to affect it and it's going to make you sick, go get a new burger with a lettuce bun or the gluten-free bun or things like that. It's so simple. And it changes how you approach life too, is when you can't live life not defining your own convictions and your own beliefs. And it takes a lot of self-reflection, and some people don't want to do it. But when you take the time to go, okay, what do I believe in? Why do I believe in this? How would I, in this situation, approach this? How would I handle this? Reflecting on past situations, you become such just a more confident person. You become a person some people want to talk to. You become a person people want to be around. You become influential. You could be lying, but as long as you believe in what you believe in, and you've made that conviction and that belief, people are still going to want to hear it, which I know sounds so weird, but that's also how cults get started. But it's like, that's what I mean though.
That's a little weird, but yeah,
no, but I'm
right.
But I'm like, you can't go about life just floating in the wind. And it's something, again, that this podcast has taught me so incredibly much, is I've had to do a lot of self-reflection, because you'll say something and I'll think about it. And sometimes I'll go, I don't agree with that. Or after some research, I'll be like, oh my gosh, like I really, like my reaction on the podcast was not a direct representation of where I am now. And so it's been very interesting. I'm not afraid to ask for help or say, can you clarify that? Or hold on, let me go research what you just told me so that I can have an intelligent conversation with you. And by taking that time to define my own beliefs and opinions, I think it's helped a lot in just me growing up.
And to that point, that excites me, Eva, because when you're in that kind of growth mindset to where you're willing to, step back and go, wow, I think I disagree with that, but I'm really not sure. Let me go research it. Let me ask some additional questions. Yep. Again, I'm actually on the last part of publishing my first book, but I just sent it to the professional editors and they have come back with some recommendations. And it really excites me because the first thing that they pointed out was something that I really struggled with. And I knew I struggled with it, and I knew it was going to come across in the writing of the book. And it's the first comment they had, and they said, this does not make sense to us. And I'm like, well, it doesn't make sense to you because it didn't make sense to me, but I tried to write it anyway. And I'm like, that kind of back and forth to where we challenge each other, we all grow and we all get better when we do that. And so again, as a dad with his daughter, when I see you embracing this process, oh my gosh, Eva, what is the podcast and what are you going to be like 4 years from now when you graduate college and you begin your journey, through life? I can't even imagine.
I can't either. And I'm so excited that like our listeners get to hear me grow up.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know that in 10, 15 years when I listen back to some of these episodes, I'm going to be like, I was so weird, or that, why did I say that? Or that was such a nerd. But I'm also like, no, but like I should be proud of myself. Like that's something, because I've grown so incredibly much through this. And I'm going to be completely honest. One of the things, I'm adding this and then I'll wrap it up because this is getting long. But one of the things, when we've talked about multiple times how I was in a bad place in April of last year, I cheated on a paper. I was struggling with my academic self-worth, and that took me a long time to be comfortable saying it. But now I'm such a huge advocate for it. I'm like, guys, I tell like my classmates or like the younger kids that like look up to me now, I'm like, don't do it. It's not worth it. As much as it makes your life easier now, take the late points. Write a bad paper. Like, don't compromise your integrity for it, because I've done it. I've lived with the consequences. And you wanted to talk about in one of our early episodes about integrity. And I told you, I can't talk about something that I currently don't have. I can't talk about something that's currently going on in my life. And over the last year, I've rebuilt that. I have such a good relationship. The teacher that I cheated on a paper on is now my senior thesis teacher. And he has been so incredibly understanding, and writing the biggest paper of my life after, like turning it in essentially a year after I cheated on a paper, has been so terrifying and so stressful, but it's been the most healing, the most gratifying, the most beautiful experience, having this teacher that supported me through my lowest and is now working with me at my highest. And it's incredible, but it was like, that was something I learned, and I've grown over the last year, is rebuilding my integrity and who I am, defining who I am in Christ, who I am as a student. I told myself in August of last year, my senior year, I'm going to dedicate myself to making friends. Like I've gone through it with not many friends throughout school. Like 4 years, I just didn't press in. I was like, oh, like the ones that want to be around me will be around me, but those weren't the people that needed to be around me. And it took pressing in with the right people to find some of the best friends I could have asked for. And Mama doesn't get it. She's like, I can't understand how you could have a friendship with somebody you only ever talk to over text. And I'm like, I don't either, but it works. I talk to some of these people 2 or 3 hours a day. Like it's wonderful, but I would never have done that had I not been at the lowest of low with no support system in April of last year. And over the summer, it was lonely. Even like when we were like traveling and things, I didn't have anybody except 2 people really to like press in with. And I said, no, I don't want this. Like I want a community. I want to support. And having these people, and it was the most gratifying thing because there were 3 students that I was extremely intimidated of academically. I always compared myself to them. I have been since freshman year, since I was in my first classes with them. Well, guess who the 3 students were that were in my writing group for my senior thesis? Those 3 students. They have been my biggest supporters. They have been my biggest champions. They have been my biggest believers when I don't even believe in myself. They have supported me. They have given me advice. They've laughed at my jokes, and they've laughed with me when I'd pulled an all-nighter and I was delirious out of my mind. And the like texts I get from them, I'm like, oh my gosh, the community I've built from it. That's been the growth too. But again, I would have never been comfortable speaking my opinion and saying, no, I need this, if it had not been for this podcast. So it's bled over outside of just the room we sit in to record these to multiple places in my life. And it's made me a better person because of it.
Wow. Eva, I'm so proud of you. And let's don't leave the audience hanging though. When you say I cheated.
Yeah. I used AI to help write a paper. And it was because I doubted my ability to write it. I had some teachers make a comment on my previous papers in previous years, and I had dealt with some like academic, trauma as a kid, and it just affected me. I did not trust teachers. That was the big thing. I did not trust that teachers had my best interest at heart. And after working with 3 specific teachers, my rhetoric teacher, my chemistry teacher, and my senior thesis teacher, but he was my TGC5 teacher at the time, like, oh my gosh, rocked my world. Their belief, their support in me, their willingness for redemption to give me another chance, that they wanted the best for me, that they believed in me. Like, oh my gosh, it changed my life in it. And my relationship with God got so much better over the last year because I think God is the ultimate teacher. And I don't think I trust that he had my best interest at heart until a year ago. And so like through that, I've been so much more willing to listen. In April of last year, that's when I got called to be a teacher. So like April was the most like world shocking. I thought I had lost my opportunity to go to college. I was like, oh no, like this is going to be on my record. I'm going to have to like submit this to college. I was panicking. I was scrambling. The podcast was literally had started off not on my, like not even a priority because there was just so much falling apart. But she said this a wonderful thing. She goes, sometimes you have to break to be remolded like pottery. And it was sometimes you have to have the crack in it to realize the shape's not right so that you can be remolded before the firing and before who you become who you are. And that changed my world. And so like this year has been so much self-growth, so much. I still got a lot of growing to do. Don't get me wrong, but like it's been healing and it's been so much fun. And I'm glad that I get to keep myself accountable on the podcast with it too.
I think it's incredible. And I just wanted to clarify because, some schools are allowing AI, but yours didn't. And every paper had to be written without it. And so you just had a moment where you said, hey, I got to get this
compromised my integrity.
Done. And the fact that you were talking about it, Eva.
And I was terrified to admit it.
Yeah, you were. But hey, I applaud you. And that is growth when you can share the struggles, the adversity, the things that you've overcome. So what a fantastic way to kind of conclude this first episode. And just based on what you just said, I'm going to put my hand over the mic and turn my face away from it a little bit and just say what I have to say. Bam! That's so good.
Yeah, that was really loud, guys, because we can hear ourselves with our headsets on, like hear our voice come back at us. I heard that not only through the mic, but outside the mic, and then it came back through the mic again. So that was really loud.
Well,
thank you.
That's how I feel. I am so very proud of you, who you are, and just, the process. And hey, it goes for me too. I am one of the funny things about getting older is with all the life experience and the wisdom that a older person has, you realize how little you know.
Yeah.
Especially when you compare what you think you know against what God knows.
Yep.
And it's almost a comical place to be.
Yeah.
But I'm along for the ride, Eva.
You've become a real comedian the last year too.
How about really?
Yeah. There was a time where you weren't funny, but you're funny now. And you know exactly.
Well, your mother said that. She said, your dad used to be funny. And I'm like, what? And you guys kind of called me on it that maybe I was getting a little bit too serious and had forgotten how to be funny. But when I take some of the filters off, yeah, I can be funny. So,
Anyway, with all that to say,
regardless of what happens, let's always be able to talk from generation to generation.
Hey, if you enjoyed our episode, make sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review because it helps people who don't know about us hear our message. And if you want to follow us on our socials, follow us at G2G_podcast on Instagram and Generation to Generation on Facebook.